Hello there, my friends, and welcome back to SilverFest. Chris Marcus of Arcadia Economics here with you. And now I am joined by the great Maurice Jackson of Proven and Probable. For this special occasion, Maurice, I even got a tie. I missed the bow tie. I don't know what's going on, but it's great to have you join us from a remote location. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing well, and I'm in Charleston, South Carolina, here on a little bit of R&R. But thank you for having me on the program.
Well, I appreciate you making some time because this is being viewed in the middle of SilverFest. Gee, if there was ever an industry that was overdue a celebration and a good party, and especially, the gold investors, they have their new all-time high, but silver finally moving. And one of the things that I think gets people so passionate about silver as opposed to Tesla stock or something else is what it actually represents and understanding, gee, if there's ever been a problem that needs to be solved with government, central banks, we've seen how silver has been used more often than not for the past couple hundred or thousands of years. And but I'm curious, is silver going to be used as money again?
That's an interesting question. I like to give this analogy, if I may. Now, I'm not a chef by any means. My wife does all the cooking, and I'm blessed to have the best cook in the world as a wife. All right. When I come home from dinner, for dinner, I should say, and my wife is cooking, she may not let me go into the kitchen, but I can smell the aroma in the air that she's cooking something, and my taste buds are already starting to dance. And, oh, I'm sorry, I got a McAfee here. Give me a second here. Sorry about that. Okay, back to the analogy here. I know that she's cooking something, but I don't know what she's cooking. But at the end, when dinner is served, I'm going to be satisfied. I want to use that analogy because before we look forward to answering your question, I think it's important for us to look back. Look back to 2 years, and I'm referring to the Bank of International Settlements, and that is the central bank for all the central banks. And what they're doing, or what they did 2 years ago, they proposed is to bring gold back as a tier one asset. And you can see the difference in the price of gold since 2018 to today. The reason is because they've been purchasing, the central banks have been purchasing gold. What that tells me is that they are losing or have been losing confidence in the Federal Reserve note. So that lets me know that this is kind of like if an analogy within an analogy. Think of Bretton Woods and how it ended. It ended because Charles de Gaulle basically said, hey, there's too much currency being printed here. I'll take your currency and I'll go over here and buy your gold. And President Nixon said, well, no, that stop that right now. That's essentially what you're seeing right here. You're seeing the central banks of the world saying, enough of this currency. And by the way, we'll take the currency we have right now and we'll start buying gold. And that's letting us know in every way possible a change is occurring. Now, how does that come into the silver sphere? I don't know directly, but there is going to be an impact and an introduction in some capacity of not just gold, but silver. We have to keep in mind that gold is historically known for being for the nations and silver for the people. And so there is a paradigm shift occurring right before our eyes. And, without someone like yourself bringing it to everyone's attention of what's going on, because mainstream media will not focus on this. They will just act like it never happened. But that is very instructive for us to understand first what occurred 2 years ago. And it's called Basel III for anyone who wants to do their own due diligence on it. Don't just take my word on it. So the Bank of International Settlements, Basel III, that came into fruition in April of 2019, but they introduced it in 2018 and started purchasing gold.
Yeah, and gee, when you look at the things that are happening with government and in the world, I don't know. I wonder if it's not more likely to be the case that something is being planned. It's not rocket science where these finances are headed, and you think even a congressman could figure it out. Who knows? But I guess the thing with silver, I could see it more with gold, where gold Although I don't know, even like, are we going to be using maybe gold as a backing to something? I don't think we're going to be chopping up gold coins
Well, let me
because
pause you.
there's
So, I was thinking about this prior to our when you were speaking here just a second ago. If silver were to be introduced for regular transactions, I think that you would see an introduction from the U.S. Mint to basically have an initiative to start having what we used to have as known for being junk silver. You'd have your quarters and your dimes made of silver. I don't see that. So that kind of leads me to believe, okay, that's probably not the route they're going with the physical. It will probably be a backing. The first backing will be by a central government that is trusted, and I would first, the number one country that comes to my
come on
mind.
now, Maurice. A central bank government that's trusted. Now that's a
No, no.
nice
Well,
trick
let me say
question.
that trust a state would be the state I'm referring to probably would have to be China as the most foregone conclusion. So the central banks, in my view, if this is as I'm seeing what they're doing here, they probably would trust China to be the new currency, world reserve currency, and there will probably be a backing at some point in time. Now, I don't have a time frame, but some point in time, a backing of the Chinese currency. And but my question or my response still was, I don't know if we'll have it in physical form. It'll be in a derivative form, meaning in some type of card and or digital, just like a cryptocurrency. I think that would be. But the important thing out of that still is this: do you want to own the derivative, or do you want to own the physical? And the answer is obviously the physical, because the derivative can't exist without the physical.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of truth to that. Another factor that I think makes it a little bit hard to imagine is especially so much of the silver is consumed. I mean, if you have your silver dime and there's the value of what you can buy and then there's the value of how it can be used, I wonder if that wouldn't be a big factor that would make it hard for silver to actually be used in coinage as money again.
I would agree, but the spot price will. I don't know how the spot price would even respond with the backing. That's something as well that you have to consider. How would the spot price respond? And then the mental, you have to think of the psychology of people. How do they now respond in what their perception now is then of a dime? Because currently a silver dime isn't regarded by the average citizen. But once it becomes fiat or an edict, then the masses come in late into the game. But now they actually increase the price of it because there's too many people coming to something that's precious. There's a reason it's called precious, because there isn't enough of it to go around in that regard for everyone to have some.
Right. And again, especially with any attempt at a government-backed currency, again, you run into that that same issue where you're trusting. So it seems almost as if you would have to have either in the coinage where it's direct and overt, because if you have something backed by government, you have that same flaw where how do you know that it's actually there and not being taken advantage of, like exactly like what we're seeing now?
What does government do? It manipulates the people to trust them. And so the trust will be, guys, don't worry anymore. We're going back to our roots of precious metals. It's money. We're going to back it. And then the trust comes that, okay, you're only going to make X amount based on the fact that you only have X amount of gold, silver, platinum, be it. And history repeats itself. That's why we're in the position we're in right now, because people always trust and they can become lazy and relaxed. And then we have the situation here. But it's a wonderful opportunity for anyone that is looking or has been adding to their position.
Yeah, and would you say, Maurice, based on what you said, that maybe it's worthwhile to expect some cyclicality that, again, I guess you could make especially with the consumption being so high now, you could maybe make the case that at least in terms of more stable currency, gold fits those properties a little more, where I think perhaps from an investment standpoint, certainly I'd rather own silver. But I mean, it's almost like we expect there to be a lot of volatility, and maybe just it's good to expect that going forward.
Well, are you referring to, just so I understand the question correctly, are you volatility just in the prices right now?
I mean, at least silver priced in dollars. I mean, when you have a lot of the risks, like you said, with when we don't know whether the gold or silver is there, we've seen the price in dollars get distorted. I don't know if silver is the most stable thing, and I get it where people say gold and silver is money, but the prices aren't always stable in terms of dollars relative to gold and silver, and I think perhaps maybe just accepting that and expecting it might be useful, but curious to hear your thoughts.
Well, because it's not used as currency for day-to-day transaction, you see the speculative aspects of it, right? You're seeing the price changes, but not the value change. The value remains the same of what it's able to purchase. The difference is what we're contending with is a currency that's being devalued, and so that currency is shifting from is being inflated. All right. When I'm referring to inflated, I'm referring to the units that are being printed and or digitized. I'm not referring to the effects of inflation. I'm referring to inflation in and of itself. But then we got to factor in as well that other currencies, people are trading currencies as well. So that affects the precious metals price, because then that makes it appear that there's confidence in one currency versus the other. But it's not really necessarily confidence. There's people speculating on the demise of one currency over another as well. So that's a story within a story. But once it becomes money, well, then the bets are off. It basically remains stable. The only speculative aspect will then be now what's coming out of the ground. Right. It'll be more from a mining standpoint than from a government fiat currency.
Yeah, and certainly it's been an interesting year this year where we've seen a lot of the mining get shut down. And again, I guess those would be some of the challenges if we did ever get back to the point where we were using silver as money. And I can see what you're saying, how when you look at how it's worked over the years and centuries in the past, that yes, you're using it and what you can actually buy. I think what actually gets confusing is the dollar part of it. Where so even all the time I spend talking about silver, it's still like I'm thinking about that dollar impact, and but it's once we get away from pricing things in dollars, which I don't know, is just in some cases hard to do since we're so indoctrinated with it. But
now, Chris, you don't have to stop you here.
Oh boy, I did it again.
Yeah, you know this one here. It's a Federal Reserve note. A dollar is 371.25 grains of silver. So I just had to throw that in there. You know that was coming from me.
We're gonna get the T-shirt made so that you don't even have to say it. You can just hold it up or press a button. Maurice, anything else before we wrap up, that whether related to silver as money or just silver in general? I know you are a silver expert. I heard you were in a book earlier this year, consulted on as one of the silver wizards of the world. So just in wrapping up, anything that perhaps people don't know that they might be well served to keep in mind, or just any parting words?
I certainly would recommend that if you're watching, listening, and you're enthusiastic about silver, consider the ratios. That is so important, because what happens is, and this is me 10 years ago, I was very silver centric and I didn't know when to let go. When you look at the ratios will let you know when it's time to sell, because there's always a time to buy and a time to sell. Consider factoring the ratios into your investment thesis. It'll serve you well. Now, when I'm referring to sell, I'm not referring to selling for fiat currency. All I'm simply conveying to you is there's a gold-silver ratio. And all I'm saying is when that ratio gets between 45 and 54, consider taking some silver and getting some gold. When that ratio is out of whack, as it is right now, it's 70, but it was a couple of months ago, 125, then take the gold and buy some silver. And you can increase your portfolio, your precious metals, which I view as a savings and an insurance plan. You can increase that by 30, 50% every 3 to 5 years.
Well, I appreciate that, Maurice. Certainly it'll be interesting to see how that ratio goes up or converges over the coming years. And my school of thought is we probably won't. I think we'll find out sooner than later, but it will be fun to follow along. Maurice, again, appreciate you joining us for this year's SilverFest, talking about silver as money. And real quick before we wrap up, could you just let folks know where they can find you and your great website and how they can stay in touch with what you're doing?
Very simple. The website is provenandprobable.com. If you're looking to purchase physical precious metals, myself and Mr. Marcus, we represent Miles Franklin Precious Metals Investments, and you're welcome to give me a call at 855-505-1900, or you may email maurice@milesfranklin.com.
All right, Maurice, I appreciate that. Thanks for being part of SilverFest, and we'll look forward to checking back in with you soon.
Thank you, Mr. Marcus. All the best to you, sir.